They told us to give a disclaimer. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the podcasters, any guests, and do not reflect any of the management, owners, sponsorships, or employees of thereof. Pretty much, if you're soft, don't listen to this podcast. One thing I pride myself on is just being the same and trying to look out for my folks along the way.
Like, even with all these, big things happening, like, you still mad humble, and you still, like, you have enough clout now where you could easily be like, I'm not fucking with this, I'm not fucking with that.
Oh yeah, motherfuckers, it's on. Unrestricted Podcast listeners, thank you so much for clicking play. Because of you, those numbers are going up, up, and up. And as you know, we just started the Patreon. So if you want to help support this channel, if you want to help support this show, go on to patreon.com/DreRocka. That's DRERAWKA. And we also got new shirts, hoodies up on the website as well, allrock.com. If you don't want to make a monetary donation, I know it's hard out here. Maybe you're helping out with the disaster that happened in California. Maybe you're donating to them. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. It's free to show love. All right. Now, today I got a very special guest across from me. Somebody that my man Sajin brought to the table because we had the fights over at Fierce Fighting Championship. We had it at the Masonic Temple in downtown Salt Lake City. And when I went into this building, I was like, one, it was a maze. And two, it was beautiful. Now I got, I said this right, Vinay Cardwell.
Vinay Cardwell, yeah. It sounds like Renee, but with a V.
Vinay Cardwell in the building. And you are a Freemason, correct?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Now, are you originally from Salt Lake City?
No, grew up in Vancouver, Canada as a Mormon.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, so hold on. Are you not a practicing?
Okay.
I know how it goes. You know what's funny is that, like, obviously being born, raised, a native to Utah.
Yeah.
But I'm not LDS and I'm not religious at all. I'm more, I guess, feeling,
Yeah.
Like, I guess when you're doing something right and you know when you're doing something wrong.
Right.
Right.
You have a moral code.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know that feeling. But growing up and being like the odd man out, it was a little tough. It was a little tough.
No, I agree.
So what brought you to Utah?
Being Mormon. So, like, you want to, came here to find my ex-wife. So,
hold on. Was she your ex-wife when you
No.
came here?
It's a joke. No, I met her at the singles ward at the University of Utah. So she was the half Japanese gal with green eyes, and I'm like smitten right when I saw her at the get. So, yeah.
I'll do it.
I locked that down.
You know what's funny? My girl got green eyes too. Green eyed girls are crazy.
Oh yeah.
So you leave British Columbia.
Yeah.
Come to Utah. You're studying at the University of Utah?
Yeah. My undergrad's in international studies and economics. So a little bit about my background. So the PC version of me is I'm Indo-Anglo-Polynesian Canadian adopted American. My kids are Japanese. Wow. And so my mom is from Fiji, but of Indian descent. So Vinay is a Hindu name.
Okay.
And then my dad is from New Zealand, but of Anglo descent. So he's like blonde hair, blue-eyed. And then I grew up in Vancouver, Canada as a Mormon, and then served a mission in Argentina, came home, and then I'm like, well, I got this travel bug. I'm like very fluent in the cultures because I grew up in a cultural melting pot in Vancouver, Canada. Because, like, I'll tell you, my dad, he was like the only growing up. He was like the only white dude on the block, and he's not even Canadian. Wow. He's from New Zealand, and so just it's a cultural melting pot. So then realizing, being Mormon, like, you got to go to Mormon Mecca, and that's Salt Lake City. So traveled to the U.S., lived in Seattle for a year. So when I crossed the border, I drove an 18-year-old car, had $100 cash in my pocket, and a credit card, and a couch to crash on, and then moved to the States. And so within a week, I found a job, place to stay, and friends I have to this very day.
Wow, man.
Yeah, I love
You're
America.
You're a traveled guy.
Yeah, I love America.
There's a lot to you. Was there ever like an identity crisis? Because being a mixed breed myself, I'm black and Mexican.
Yeah.
And people think I'm Polynesian, right? But black and Mexican makes a Puerto Rican. But but was there ever like an identity thing there?
Yeah, I still have it. Yeah, and even my my kids. So my daughter's like she's 11, and so she's quarter Japanese, and so she has she, in her class, she goes to school here in North Salt Lake, and she has a group text with 3 other girls, and they're all mixed race. So they're the mixed race tribe at school. So it's like, you know, those kids at least have some sort of a group, because here in Utah, it's very seldom that you're going to get that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, I still have the identity crisis, because I'm like, my friends think my black friends think I'm light skinned.
Yeah.
You know, my Polynesian friends have they wonder, but they don't. And when I was on my mission, people thought I was like Latino. Oh, I remember my first week in my mission in Argentina. I'm walking on the block with my companion, and he's like a blonde haired, blue eyed guy from Layton. And this guy comes up to me and starts yelling at me. I have no clue what the freak this guy's saying. Right. Yeah. I'm fresh in the country, and he starts chirping at my ear, and then my companion, he looks over at my companion, and he's like, "What's wrong with this guy? Doesn't he understand our language?" He's like, "No, he's Canadian." And he's like, "Oh, sorry." He apologized profusely to me, and then he starts, chirping at my companion's ear.
Let you off. You got off the hook.
But that's the thing. Like I'm very much a chameleon in certain aspects. I can blend in really well. Any kind of, scenario or situation I put myself into.
Mm-hmm. Was education always a big thing for you?
No, man. I'm actually a high school dropout, and now I'm a Harvard grad. So
wow.
Yeah, it was when I was 15. I used to go to all guys Catholic school. So when I was growing up, my parents wanted to put us into private school, and the only private school around was Catholic school. So basically, from grade 1 till grade 7, I was in grade 6, and then we moved for a year to go to public school. But that was in private school, and then grade 8 to 12 is like high school years, and we don't have junior high back home in Canada. And so I would go to an all guys Catholic school, and I was bullied. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. Yeah. I don't want to deal with this shit anymore. And when I was 15, I dropped out of high school for about a year and a half.
And what got you back into education?
Realizing that your life ain't shit without it. So busted my ass and got back into school and graduated when I was like 19 something or other. Yeah, and back in the day in Canada, you could be 19 was the legal age. It's like 21 is here.
Yeah.
So I was the guy that the funny thing is I was still kind of Mormon at the time. So I was the guy that went to the liquor store and bought booze for my friends.
You were, what they call that, Jack Mormon?
I don't know. Something like that.
Where you're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. A lot of my friends, I won't out you, but a lot of my friends growing up were that way. I was like, man, you guys are doing beer runs with us? You going to church next morning? What are you doing?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, so you drop out of high school. In Canada, do you have to get your high school diploma before you go to college?
Yeah.
Okay, so you is that when you graduated in 19?
I was 19.
19 years old. And then you start applying for higher education. How did you know what you wanted to go to school for?
I've always been a hustler, so I knew whatever it was I was going to go into school for didn't really matter because I was going to be doing sales. Mm-hmm. So what's ironic is I started going back to school at college around 24, 25, I think was when I started my undergrad, and I want to say that when I decided to really kind of settle down, it was just after I got married. And I'm sitting down with my ex-wife, and she's like, well, what do you want to study? And I'm like, oh, I really love economics, and I really love this, and this. And so she's like, you're just going to do sales, so just find the quickest degree you can get. So I went on the U of U and looked at the STARS report, and I'm like, okay, international studies. So I go and sit down with a counselor. And here's the thing. There's like 4 criteria for having an international studies degree. One's like knowing another language. So I spoke Spanish because of my mission. And then and living in foreign countries and stuff like that. And so, and then 2 others. And so I'm sitting down with the counselor, and she's like, hey, yeah, so what language do you speak? I'm like, I speak Spanish. I served my mission in Argentina. She's like, oh, okay, that's great. Do you have any sort of documentation to prove that you lived in Argentina? I'm like, yeah, probably back home in my home in Vancouver, Canada. She's like, oh, you're Canadian? She's like, I'm like, yeah. So she goes and checks the box on my criteria of international experience. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm Canadian. So I'm like...
You just listening to the small portion of your story, you seem like one of those guys that just slips through the things in life.
Oh, dude, totally.
I don't know why, but it's like you just sliver through one thing that can, like just in that sense, that issue right there, like you slivered through such a bigger thing. Because if you didn't have that, obviously it would have been a little bit more difficult, right?
Yeah, I don't take no for an answer. Like, I love it when people actually tell me no, because I'm like, nah, fuck this. I'm gonna figure out a way.
Yeah, hustler. You said it right.
Yeah, and so it's funny too, because like when I even applied for the U, so I was. I'm not very scholastic, which is kind of ironic because I went to Harvard. But it's like I was on academic probation at the for my undergrad, and so I had like a 1.76 GPA, and like, and so you needed like a 2.8 or something like that to at least apply to get into the U. And I just kept taking classes, bumped up my GPA, and flew under the radar. And then when I applied for graduation, I think I had ended up with a 3.2 overall and 3.6 in like econ. And but the ironic thing is like they're looking at this, they're like, how are you applying for graduation? How have you gone to school for this long? And how have we not known about this? And I did it during summer. The thing is, you'd never do it during busy times. Find the off times when they're like, people don't give a shit. And they're just going to rubber stamp it anyway. So I applied during the summertime to make sure I'm like, no one's going to scrutinize anything that draw any attention to it. And so I applied in the summertime. They're like, okay, whatever. And they just rubber stamped it and put it along. And I graduated that summer.
There you go. So at what point do you say, hey, I'm done with the U of U. Let's look at Harvard. How does Harvard even come into the picture?
Yeah, I graduated there and then went into the workforce, and then I was married, had some kids, and then realized that my ex-wife and I, and actually thank you for the CES letter, that realized that the church, it's not for me. So moved on from that, and her and I are just best friends. So it's like, well, we got these two great kids, boy and a girl, and like, what do we need to do?
Backtrack real quick. CES letter, is that excommunication from the church?
No. It's a letter that Jeremy Reynolds wrote to his the Church Education System letter, so CES. And he wrote it about 50 questions or so that he had about the church that were just anomalies. Like, it didn't make sense.
Okay.
Utilizing critical thinking, we're told to believe the stuff outright, but you can't ask questions. You have to be blind obedient. And so he was like, no. When you're being told to do that sort of stuff, critical thinking starts to click on, like, let's ask why.
Yeah.
And dive deeper into it. And reading that, because I'm a critical mind thinker, because apparently I don't do anything conventional.
Yeah.
And so I read it, and I'm like, okay, now I had some questions. I was living in St. George at the time, too, and it was the Mountain Meadows. I went down to the Mountain Meadows massacre site, and that was the bomb for me.
Wow.
When I realized, I'm like, 120 people just killed in cold blood from the church. I'm like, that just doesn't make sense.
Wasn't that FLDS though?
No, it was LDS at the time.
Oh,
it was Brigham Young's day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had me, and I don't know much about the Mormon church and the faith, but at one point it was like there was a whole color barrier thing. And I was like,
yeah, man.
I don't know if you should have some type of like, black people can't hold priesthood.
Yeah.
And like, we're celebrating the first black person to have a priesthood. I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't know if this is for me.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And that was also a struggle for me because, being a man of color, it's like, and was I really like chastised before I even came to this earth because of my skin color? Did I really not fight in the war in heaven? Like,
don't sound right? It
doesn't. It's critical thinking, right? Yeah. Like, it has more to do with my biology and melanin in my skin than it has anything to do with my righteousness before I even came to this earth.
For something that is so,
it's kind of ignorant to be.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. But for something to be so powerful in your life, like religion, how hard was it to be like, dude, this thing I believed in this whole time isn't adding up? Yeah.
So I think the fact that I've always studied Stoicism and econ and economics, there's the term called cost fallacy, sunk cost fallacy. So when you're investing into something, that money you put into it, or that time, let's just say time, for example, because you can't get time back. So time you've already put into it, you can't go and take that time out. So like if you're going to invest in something and like hopefully it'll go up, But it's like, no, that's sunk costs. I put money into that. I can't get it back. I either need to cut my losses and move on, or I need to double down on it. So it's you got to look at your sunk costs. And I look at myself for like religion. I dedicated my life to it for like 37 years at the time. And I was a 29-year-old virgin, man. So I was dedicated to this shit,
Yeah. Damn, how do you go 29? I mean, not even 29 years, but how do you go your whole fucking from the day that you become a man to mature? How do you go that far?
That was I had some challenging conversations with my bishop, man. So, but I did it.
Were you a fan of the soaking?
I'll be honest, man. I never
just found out what soaking was.
I think that's more of like a new age kind of like with these Mormon kids. And I'm like,
oh, okay.
I never really knew what soaking was until I left the church.
It's like, damn.
Shit, man, I missed out on something.
That's hilarious. Okay, so yeah, I mean it's something to where your whole thing is changing, right?
Yeah.
Your whole life is changing. You have a new way of thinking. Not even new, because you've always been into stoicism. Is that possible though, to be stoic and religious too?
Yeah, I mean it's just a higher being or higher belief. And so for me, it's like, again, sunk costs. I'm like, I can't change the past. So what can I do to make the future better? And so that's when I'm just like, I got to let go of it. I just got to forgive. So I just forgave everything. I mean, like, I don't hold any grudges, or, people did things or judged me because of the faith that they had, or again, the ignorance that they had. Yeah. Right. And so I'm like, I can't hold that against them. I just got to move on and just move forward. And so that's what I've kind of done. And I've lived a pretty amazing life ever since I'd made that decision to uproot myself and leave the faith and be the man I am today.
How was the news for your family? Like at this time, are you treating your kids into the faith? Are you showing your kids the faith? Are your kids kind of like, whoa, Dad, what are you doing?
Yeah, so I had a 3-year-old at the time, and then my son was just being born. And it was actually kind of interesting. So my son was born with hydrocephalus.
Don't know what that is.
So it's with the brain swelling. So there's has cerebral fluid coming through your brain. So it's developing your brain, right? And so we had some MRIs done with him. Like, his brain was not forming the way it should. So now they go and tell us, well, he's developing in utero, that he is probably gonna not be able to see, speak. He'll have like walking issues, like all the worst case scenario. And my ex-wife and I are looking at each other. We're like, wow, we're going to have a special needs kid the rest of our lives. And I'm already kind of going through my like trial of faith at this time. And as I'm going through it, I'm thinking to myself, wow, the Lord is chastising me because I'm not believing that this is his true faith. And because of that, he's going to give me, humble me and give me a special needs child for the rest of my life. And hit me hard. And I'm like, no, this can't be true. The church isn't true. And it made me kind of like double down and really have some resentment for the faith that I had because of this guilt that was grown with. And as my son developed, and I don't know, maybe the benefit of positive thinking and affirmations, he was born, no issues with him. Even today, it's like my ex-wife and I will go and watch him at soccer games and his American Ninja Warrior kind of training and gymnastics. And we're just like, to believe that the doctors told us he couldn't even run. Mm. Now he's walking, talking. He's like one of the top kids in his class. He's a I don't know. It's just a regular kid. Yeah. And it's a relief to see that you're not held back by these certain beliefs and boundaries that I once used to have. And so having that happen really kind of like changes your paradigm and your perspective on life, and knowing that religion isn't everything. Mm-hmm. Religion doesn't dictate. You get to dictate what your life is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you gonna do? You gonna sit down, cry? Or you gonna get up and get it?
Yeah.
You gotta get. You know what I mean? Positive affirmations. How old your son now?
He's 8. 8?
Yeah.
8, and he's running around and having a great life.
As a father, the whole kid thing hits different. I have 3 kids. I have an 11-year-old, I have a 6-year-old, and I have a 4-year-old. My 6-year-old, he's high leveling spectrum. Like they're saying, possible autism.
Yeah.
The label autism. And for me and my wife, it's like, okay, yeah, we understand what people say. We understand what the doctors say and stuff. And when my son started school, it was so hard to keep him in class. It was so hard to keep his focus. It was so hard just to manage him in school, in the academic space, right?
Yeah.
Because he wants to explore. Like, it's a new big building. He wants to explore everything. And school's fun, right? School's cool. Like, they got colors and things like that. He wants to go and check out the 5th graders. I want to go hang out with the big kids, And that was at the start of the school year. Yesterday, we have a progress report. And my son was getting like 20s and 30%. Yesterday, he got like 81%. Just killed it. Like, he's doing so good. And like, as a father, it's like, man, you hear people say certain things, and then it's like, nah, man, like, he's going to show you. And my son, he did. He showed up.
Yeah.
Although he did punch the principal in the stomach, and the principal is pregnant. So I felt horrible about that. And you don't think a 6-year-old can pack a punch, but man, my son packs a punch. Yeah, kid packs a punch. But he, man, just hearing your son's story, it's like, yeah, man, our kids can do amazing things.
Yeah.
You just got to believe in them.
Yeah, and so I guess kind of going back to how I got into Harvard too was going through my divorce, and I thought to myself, man, I'm going to go through. I've already gone through this trial of faith. I've lost my best friend. I've kind of lost everything, and so I'm like, I have these 2 kids that I gotta take care of, and so I thought, how do I take care of my kids? Well, I've known that you need to hang out with other prosperous or affluent people. And I'm like, well, where do all these affluent, prosperous people come from, or where they go? And I'm like, they all go to Ivy League schools. So I'm like, okay, let's go check this out. So I looked at Stanford. I actually almost got into a program at Dartmouth, and I saw this program at Harvard. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go to Harvard. I just said it to myself. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to go to Harvard. And I applied. Got denied.
Man, that's funny as hell, though. Hey, but you applied. All right?
I applied, got denied, and I'm like,
hold on. Let's rewind just a little bit. You apply for Harvard. Is this online? Do you send a letter? You recommendations?
Yeah,
like,
you go through this. You write a letter or essay. You go through an essay. You have some testing. It was like probably took me like 3 hours or something like that to like go through and set up this application.
That's determination. I would have been like, nah, 3 hours out of my day. You say you don't get time back.
Just to do it, right? And to pay for it too. And I got denied. And I'm like, oh, great. So then I looked up online. I'm like, fuck this, right? Mm-hmm. Fuck this. Why'd I get denied? So I looked it up and I'm like, I answered their fucking question. Going back to critical thinking, they don't want people to answer the question. They want people to think, who ask why. And so when I did, I reapplied. And then when it came to the essay part of like asking that question, I said like, all right, here's the response to your question that I think you should have, but here's the response I want to give you. And so I appeased them and then told them like, well, this is why I think it's actually this response. And they're like, okay, this is the kind of thinking that we want to have, because we want to have contrarians. We want to have people that are going to push the envelope, that are going to speak up in class. It's not just to like get a piece of paper to hang up on your wall. It's like we want people who are going to like move the world. Mm-hmm. And so went through that process, and then eventually I got accepted into the program. And it was online, where you actually do it online, and then you fly out to Cambridge for the intensive weekends. And so I got to do that once, and then COVID hits. And I'm like, shit. The whole opportunity to actually go on to Cambridge and Harvard's campus, and I only got to do that once. But, it's still good that I still got the piece of paper. And then when COVID hit, when I graduated, they hadn't had anybody on campus for like 2 years.
Wow.
So I just doubled down on the program, took as many classes as I could. Because what else are you going to do during COVID? It's like I'm stuck at home, my girlfriend at the time, and we're just like hanging out and working. So I just took as many classes as I could and just all of my stuff online and graduated from Harvard online without really being able to go onto campus.
Yeah, man. But you got the college experience at the U of U, right?
Oh yeah,
you got that experience.
Well, being Mormon, I guess, but at Harvard, the first time I did get to go to Cambridge. There's a bar just a half block away from Harvard Square, and one of the things I always wanted to do is to buy my professor a beer. And I got to do that. And it was just like a cool experience. I'm like, wow, this is what college is. I got to buy my professor a beer. We got to like shoot the shit about behavioral economics and stuff, So,
so what? Here's the big me. I'm not an academic guy. The first thing that you when you said that, first thing that popped in my head was, what did Professor drink? What was the beer?
It was a lager. It was a local lager.
Okay.
It was actually kind of cool. It was like a whiskey infused barrel that they had a lager that they brewed a lager out of.
We actually I work at a bar named Sue. I DJ there.
Yeah.
And we actually just did the same thing. We got our own barrels. I think he got about 20 barrels, and he infused it and he made his own whiskey out of it. I still got a bottle down there that hasn't been opened.
Okay.
Yeah. Waiting for a good occasion. You know what I mean? That's awesome, man. So you had a good experience, college, and then what happens after you graduate Harvard? Are you working during this time, or are you doing sales during this time?
So I mean, I worked at eBay for about 4 years, and it was a good gig, especially during COVID because eBay blew up because nobody could go out and shop. So you're buying off of your e-commerce platforms, and so we were really busy and we did really well. So it was a good gig, and. But what ends up happening is, so at the same time, I'm running a group called Young Professionals of Salt Lake City. And so these are all the young professionals, all the millennials that are coming into Utah. And 78% of us were transplants. So being transplants to Utah, you don't know where to go, what to do, who to make friends with, all that sort of stuff. And so I joined that group when I was going through my divorce. And I kind of viewed it, I was telling my ex-wife, I'm like, this is kind of like singles ward for us. Like all the friends are kind of like the same sort of thing. They're all in that same sort of genre of life and trying to figure shit out. And so I'm like, I can have some influence on these people. And so I did. I was the guy that set up parties, events, got them to socialize. I took our membership, I think we were at like 1,500 coming out of COVID, and I brought it up to like 3,300.
Wow.
So it was like a 220% increase in membership. And I did that through just looking at the data that we had from prior years. And what it was is showing that we had a membership of 51% female, and I took it to 58% because people want to have friends. So I'm like, when you go to like these things, it's like, it's just a me market. Like people are just trying to hook up and find each other. I'm like, no, what I did is I changed it to make it a female-centric group where it's you come here to have friends first, and then whatever transpires after that, great. So, and I made it a creeper-free zone. So if I don't get girls there, guys aren't going to show up. And if guys don't show up, then girls aren't going to show up. So it's like, it's catch-22. And so I made sure that females felt comfortable. And from making a creeper-free zone and just making it so females can just come and hang out and make other friends with other people, like it just blew up because that spread like wildfire.
What year is this?
This is just coming out of COVID.
Like 2021?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. 21, I want to say, yeah. And so 4 years ago.
Where are you throwing these events?
Downtown. That's how I got to know all the bar and club owners. So like Twist, Exchange, London Bell, Sky, like all the bars and clubs I got to know. And then that's actually how I got to become a founding member of Edison House. And so it's kind of ironic too. They're doing the groundbreaking of Edison House, right? And so I get a text message or a call from George, the one of the owners, and he's like, "Hey man, can you be at our groundbreaking? You feel like you're a very influential person in in the community. I'm like, hell yeah, of course I want to be there. So I show up, and I don't know, it's just kind of ironic that it's all these, like, we call them cotton tops, like all old white dudes.
Yeah.
And here I am, the token color guy to like me in the picture, you know.
Yeah.
I had the blue shirt, everyone else has white shirts and like whatever else they're conservative wearing, and I'm like, all right, now this is documented for the rest of my life. I'm like, I know why I'm here, but you know, not to go just to say that, but I mean, they really did believe I was an influential person, and it just so happens that I'm like, okay, I have an ethnic background that's a little diverse than everybody else there.
And Edison House is similar to the club that you kind of made for people to meet people, right? Isn't it like a private?
Yeah, it's a members only social club, and I love it, man. It's like the coolest spot. I love going there as often as I can because it's a social club. So there's somebody sitting at the bar, and you don't know them, but you're able to just go up to them and just start talking to them, and they're not going to feel offended that you're up there. I'm like, why are you talking to me? I'm like, it's a social club. It's not like a regular bar where people like just kind of want to drink and stick to themselves. It's like, no, you're coming to Edison House. You want to make friends. And so I've grown a network just from hanging out at Edison House, because it's talk about the affluent and influential people in Salt Lake in Utah. You know, they typically congregate at the same places.
Are you sick of podcasts that just interview people with the same questions and gossiping nonsense?
Are you tired of hearing about what's wrong with the world? Can you locate your nearest orphanage?
Who cooked the Last Supper?
R.I.P. Mr. Potato Head.
Seppuku Harakiri.
Where is Mavis Beacon?
This is Hos.
And this is host Beefy.
Listen to the Beans and Rice podcast.
Exclusively in Braille and all streaming platforms.
Patent pending.
No pukesters helping me to the left, and no pukesters helping me to the right. Didn't need them then, don't need them now.
You are the ex-champion of
Now this is the way, Tony and David, that you do the figure four leg lock.
Do you love wrestling?
Do you believe that Stone Cold Steve Austin is the greatest entertainer of all time?
Or maybe that Shawn Michaels is the sexiest man alive?
Or did you have a thing for Sonny from the years of 1994 to 1996 like I did?
Did you know Yokozuna isn't even Japanese?
If you could count the number of dimples on Rikishi's ass, this podcast is for you.
Follow us, the Figure 4 Podcast on Instagram, at Figure 4 Podcast, and check us out on YouTube.
Do it.
Tell your punk friends about us.
Yeah.
Having such it's a networking thing, right? You're building your network. Do you find that the way that you're doing it now with like the Edison House, how does that change between the way that you built your network in college and now?
I mean, so you go back to K. Anders Ericsson's study of violinists and the 10,000 hour rule, right? Mm-hmm. And so you look at all these small things that you built up, and it has to be progressive practice, where if you're going to spend time playing the violin or the piano, you need to advance yourself in certain skill levels and try different things and push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And I did that for a lot of the stuff I used to do. I used to go to, when I was Mormon, I used to go to networking meetings, even at bars and clubs, because, well, that's where people are at. And I didn't give a shit. Like, I'm not going to drink, but I'll still hang out and participate. And I was always like the first one in and the last one out. And what I noticed was, like, when I go to these networking events, I was like, those are the best contacts when I met first when I got there, and the last people that were there at the end. Like, those were always, in the middle was just like socializing, but like the best contacts were always at the beginning, at the end. And from that, I leveraged it to kind of like run when I was running YP, is that doing all these events and socializing, like, you need person-to-person connection. And that's actually why I got out of technology, because AI is going to take over our jobs. So if your job's digitized, yep. AI is going to take that over. And got into the real world, and the real world is where AI can't touch you. And that's kind of doubling down to where I got involved with the Masonic Temple and throwing events. But it was getting into real life in-person events that made me realize that, AI is not going to touch it, and doing all these other smaller stuff I used to throw after I left the YP. I had a dance group called Dance After Dark, and so they're from the Millennium Dance Complex, and it's not like it's a burlesque, but it's not like it's a strip club, but they're very seductively dancing in choreography.
Right in line. Yeah. Okay.
It was.
Hold on. You had a dance group. Were you dancing?
No, I was.
Okay. You were like the manager.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
I was a producer or whatever, and a promoter, and I find them gigs, and so we did local nightclubs. I did a couple of corporate gigs for them, and then people are just throwing dollars at them. It's like it's a spectacle to see with like these like attractive people dancing provocatively in choreography. It's not something that you're going to go and see at a strip club.
Yeah.
And so it's a spectacle.
This is a big thing. I had a group on the show called Hillphoria, and it's a group of ladies that they might be moms or career women, and they just put on heels and they dance choreography seductively, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like their fitness, and they do it all over the city. This thing has been I didn't know this until they came on the show, but this is a big thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, okay.
All those MILFs out there, man.
Yeah, for real. Cougars too. Yeah, all the Draper moms. You know about the Draper moms.
Yeah, man.
They got their Stanleys and their Target cards. Okay, I want to transition just a little bit. At what point do you get introduced to being a Freemason?
Yeah, so when I was married, I used to work at the U in my undergrad, and worked at the University Media Sales Group. And so a client came in to advertise about the Masonic Temple having an open house, and I looked at it, I'm like, huh. And the whole thing is, back in the day, like, I know a lot of the temple ceremony came out of Freemasonry, and they told us not to really delve into that stuff. Again, going back to the whole blind obedience thing, right? Like, don't go and ask or stick your hand in the cookie jar, because you might pull out something you might want to participate or eat, you know? And so I told my ex-wife about it, and she's like, no, let's go check it out. And I'm like, okay. And I this is the thing I loved about her. She was always very supportive of whatever I kind of wanted to do. And this is, you know, if you're going to be in a relationship, if you need to find somebody who's going to support you with regardless, you know? And so that's one thing I did love about her. And she always supported me whatever I did. And so we went to it. And we're sitting there in the grand auditorium. And they give us this whole tour, start talking about Freemasonry. And she leans over to me and says, you should join this group. And I'm like, what? I don't know. Can we? And I think to myself, can we? Because I didn't think we could as being Mormon. And then they're like, somebody brought up the question, like literally like 2 minutes later, like, hey, can you be a Mormon and a Freemason? And so like, well, let's ask the Mormon in the group here. And then the guy stands up and he's like, yeah, I'm a practicing Mormon. And yes, you can be a Freemason. And what they did is they go back to the history of it. So when you're a Freemason, you need to abide by the laws of the land. And this, again, is like a Mormon tenet that we have, the principle that we abide by. We have to abide by the laws of the land. And so when the Mormons came to Utah, or Mexico at the time, we practiced polygamy. And guess what? That's not one of the laws of the land. That's why we had to come to Utah to practice their polygamy, because it wasn't something you could practice in the U.S. And so from there, that's when they realized, look, the Masons were just like, all right, we can't support this. If you're a Mormon, you cannot be a Mason. And so you were kicked out of Freemasonry if you're a Mormon, because of this whole polygamy thing. So 1984 rolls around, and then they're like, well, Mormons haven't practiced polygamy for like 90 years or something like that. So why can't we go and allow Mormons to be accepted as Freemasons? Because all you have to do is like have a moral code and believe in a higher being. Like, you can't be an atheist and be a Freemason. And so Mormons still have this moral code, and they believe in a higher power. So why can't they be one? And so they opened it up in 84, and since then, Mormons have been able to become Freemasons. And so that's why I joined, because shortly after, my ex-wife was like, just join. Like, this is the kind of group of people you want to be associated with.
How long have you been a Freemason?
11 years.
11 years. And what was your thought of Masonry or Freemasonry before joining? And did you even know about it until you went and actually set in.
The Illuminati and all that sort of shit, man. Like it's and the whole thing of being told not to by my faith was also kind of like a thing that kind of pushed me to check it out, at least inquire a little bit more. And yeah, just the symbolism and the esoteric teachings that come from Freemasonry that I was really intrigued by.
Now, when I say that this episode gets deep on the Masonry talk, it really does. And I want you to see the whole thing, but the whole thing is up on the Patreon, patreon.com/DreRocka. Go run it up. Let's finish the show. How important or how involved are the Masons? Obviously, with the Shriners, with your guys' charitable arm. You guys obviously are very involved with the community, but outside of that, how involved are you guys with community?
That's something we're trying to also expand and grow. So how I came about and with running the temple here is I used to go to shows a lot, so EDM shows, and I would see my buddy there, Austin, who'd be at shows as well, and then we found out we're fellow brothers, and he's just like, dude, we got to do some shows at the Masonic Temple. The last one that happened was Cascade, and so we got to get Cascade to come back to the temple. I'm like, what? Cascade played here? Oh man, okay. And so it got me thinking. I'm like, all right, I've been in the industry for a little bit because my best friend runs a venue, and she worked for the largest promoter here in Utah for concerts and shows. And so I got to know and learn the industry, and we did our first show this time last year in January. And we did a local promoter wanted to do an event with us. And I actually kind of backtrack a little bit. My buddy Austin brought it up to me. He's like, let's do some shows. I'm like, great. And then it was Halloween time. So it's September, October of last year. And I wanted to do a Halloween party. So then I go and say to one of the secretary at the temple, I'm like, hey, I want to do a Halloween party. What do I need to do? What's the process? And he emailed me back and said, no, we don't do costume parties at the temple. And I'm like, what the hell? We're Freemasons. We get dressed up and act out in plays all the time. Like, of course we do costume parties. Like it just pissed me off. He just said no instead of telling me why. Like that's a key thing for me. If you don't tell me why, I'm like,
yeah.
Now I'm a little ticked. And so I go and run it up the chain to the president. I'm like, hey, I'm a dues paying member. I just wanted to throw a party, an event, and you know, what do we got to do? And so he said, all right, come January, we got to make some moves. So what ends up happening is the gentleman that said no to me, well, he ends up, and I'm not there, okay? I'm not there. So he's already upset a lot of other people. But he ends up getting voted off the board. And then my buddy goes and takes his position as secretary and then places me into his position on the board. So because the guy said no to me, I ended up getting him kicked off the board and then taking a spot on the board because he said no to me.
Dang.
And so now I'm the guy that helps put on events at the Masonic Temple because he said no.
Was there something personal there?
I've never met the guy in person.
Okay.
Never seen him, but apparently this guy would always say no to everybody.
Gotcha.
And he's put on so many like deferred issues with updates for the temple. It's 100-year-old building.
Yes,
man.
it is. That's why I was scared of that elevator.
Yeah, it's 100-year-old building. Like there's stuff that you got to update, and he just never did because he was in his late 60s or something like that.
Yeah.
So he just didn't care. He was going to retire soon, and he's just like, I'll just hold on to it just a little bit longer and then retire. And but he just didn't care, and that's the kind of attitude we got to get rid of.
Yep.
Nobody needs that, regardless of your tenure. And so Sean took his job, and so Sean and I have just been hustling ever since. And you know, we've had our ups and downs and trials, and then working through the city, and the city's like, what the hell? You're doing like raves and parties and concerts in the Masonic Temple? Like this doesn't make any sense. Like, can you even do that? And we're we're making moves that people would never have thought of. And it's such a unique building that There's nothing to compare it to.
There really isn't. That's why I wanted to have you here, is because the community needs to know that they can do these things.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of events you allow and which ones you don't, but I'm like, damn, you guys allow people to get punched in the face. You guys allow people to dance. You guys, I'm assuming you guys can do weddings, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we had our first wedding last year on Halloween. He rented out the whole building.
See, that's why I'm like, the community needs to know, because I seen a gaming conference or something.
Yeah, we did Failed Fest. We did our first business conference there, because we have all these other smaller breakout rooms that you can use. And
I seen the Gothic room look beautiful.
Oh, yeah, it was. And then we did Best of Utah. So City Weekly's Best of Utah we did in the Masonic Temple.
See?
And now we have the Utah Art Alliance is going to do their white party in March. I mean, we have concerts and events happening all the time. We're going to do a comedy show. Like, there's so many things. It's just a space that we want to allow for the public to come and procure.
What rooms are off limits?
Well, we don't have the roof done yet. And honestly, man, if we can get that roof done, you have 360 views unobstructed of the Salt Lake Valley. You can get to see the skyline of Salt Lake. You get to see the avenues, the University of Utah, and on a clear day, you can see all the way down to the point of the mountain. And there's no buildings that are going to be built that are going to obstruct the views.
So what's the holdup? Is it the city? Is it funding?
It's just funding, you know. It's again, a 100-year-old building. They used to have a dance floor up there in the 50s.
Wow.
So we know people can get up there. But, you know, structural engineer has to go in there, do an assessment and figure that stuff out. But once we do, man, if we can build a dance floor again up there, or a restaurant, or however we're going to do that, like, would be untouchable. Like, there's nothing that can compare to us. And the weddings and the amount of, like, people that will want to come through that space, there's nothing to, again, compare it to.
What's the G stand for in the compass?
God or geometry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that was always something that always symbolized when I see it, whether if it's on the ring or on the license plate. I'm like, oh, that's a Freemason. You know? Well, this is really cool to get to know you. And I know we're coming up on short on time here, but I appreciate you just kind of letting us know a little bit more, the community know a little bit more, because your guys' venue and what you guys do is really cool, and a lot of people don't know it.
Yeah, and that's the objective, right? Is we want to make sure that people think that we're just a closed society, like we just keep to ourselves.
Well, I thought you guys sacrificed goats.
Right. It's just people.
That's what I thought. To be honest with you, I'm like, yo, they sacrifice. And you said you're a master. I'm like, oh, this is the dude that cuts the goat's neck.
But that's the thing. So with Freemasons, I mean, we typically are kind of insulated and more introverted. And so they get a guy like me who's like very much extroverted, and I want to go out and make friends in the community. And so as soon as this opportunity came about, I just leveraged my network to get out there and to start doing events and doing shows. And because of that, because I'm the extrovert who's out there, people know about it. Otherwise, nobody would know that you can even rent out that space.
Yeah.
And because we rent it out now, we're actually gaining more revenue. So we have two revenue streams right now with that building. One is through memberships, but unfortunately, there's a precipitous decline in memberships in Freemasonry here in Salt Lake. And two, we have a land lease of an apartment complex that's kind of kitty corner from us. So we make money from those two revenue streams. But unfortunately, it's a 100-year-old building.
Yeah.
There's a lot of upkeep that we need to do. And so the only other way to generate revenue is we have an asset sitting there. How do we leverage that asset? And so we rent it out. And that's the other revenue stream that's going to make sure this building is going to stay solvent, because it's expensive to keep the lights on.
Have you guys done a documentary on Utah Masons?
No.
That might be a revenue stream.
Yeah.
Like, get somebody from the Utah Film, whatever, or something, to tell the story of Utah Masons. Tell the history. You guys got documents in that building. I know you guys got ledgers. I know you guys got things that were written 100 years ago, that stories that should be told to grandkids of those people that don't even know it. This is a whole long series that you guys can continuously generate revenue off of.
Huh.
And you guys can premiere it right there in the banquet hall.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Or even right there in the one where we had the fights. You can,
the auditorium.
Big theater, show it there. You look at it, you pay whatever. I just thinking of, like, how do we keep this thing cool, and how can you guys generate revenue?
Yeah.
I love hearing stories. I love documentaries. I love hearing these things. Who knows? Maybe the family of some of your former members might have audio from them. You know, you don't know what could be drawn up. So just different things like that. I think your wheels are turning. I can see it already. I know I would buy it. I know if you say, hey, we got a Freemason ticket or a show or a documentary, I'll buy it.
That's interesting, too, because we were kind of waiting on what Sundance is going to do. And if Sundance goes...
Well, they've been trying to close Sundance down for the last 5-6 years.
If they stick around in Salt Lake, we're the venue that people are gonna want to come to.
Hell yeah.
We just did our occupancy rating last week, so we got our occupancy done, and now just getting a few more other things to make sure we're an official venue in the next few months, and then we can really go after some of these bigger accounts.
I want to bring wrestling to the venue.
Do you?
I'm a fan of pro wrestling. We're a pro wrestling fan. We're a WWE fan, and we have a local promotion called Devotion Championship Wrestling here in Utah.
Yeah.
Which is similar to Fierce Fighting Championship, right? Like Fierce is like the next before you go to the UFC. Devotion Championship Wrestling is the step before WWE.
No way.
Yeah, we have really good talent. And actually one of the owner and operator, Manny Lemons, he was on WWE last night. Yeah. Like, yeah, it's a big deal.
Dude,
and nobody knows. And wrestling is so hot right now.
It totally is.
So
I even hit up the there's a midget wrestling syndicate that's coming through town, and I'm like, guys, you should come to the Masonic Temple. So I just hit him up like last week. So hopefully, now it just reminds me, I got to follow up with them.
I'll be there if you guys lock it in.
Right in April, they want to come through. So I'm like, shit, this would be amazing. Because that's again, it's a spectacle. We have a venue that's so unique that you have a floor and stadium seating. There is no seat in that place that is bad.
It's not.
Every seat's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Like you can't have a bad seat. And so we want to bring in as much sort of talent and opportunity that we can. The fact that we put an octagon onto that floor.
January 24th, get your tickets, firstfightingchampionship.com. I can't wait. I love going to this new venue. I love where you guys are and here and meeting the face behind what's going on. It just makes it even better because I think that you are somebody you're not a no guy. It doesn't seem like you're a gatekeeper, and it seems like you want to bring more of this to your guys' venue, which is I'm all for.
Yeah.
How many members do you guys have currently?
About 1,800 in the state. So kind of spread around. There's 33 lodges in Utah. I think we're currently right now.
Nice.
Yeah, and so the building that we have right there in Salt Lake was actually started in 1926 and erected in 1927. But 4 men, and one of them paid. It was $1 million that they donated, and he donated $750,000 of it, and the other 3 donated the other $250,000. And that man's name was James Cash Penny, a.k.a. J.C. Penny.
Wow.
J.C. Penny built the Salt Lake Masonic Temple.
That's cool, man.
He started his business over in Kitmer, Wyoming, like a small town in Wyoming. And then he moved to Salt Lake because that was the closest, metropolitan. And that's where his corporate headquarters were. And so at the time, he was a Freemason. And again, the certain people that are a certain make that are Freemasons, there's a reason for them. Mm-hmm. And you can't go and be as progressive and affluential as he was if you didn't abide by certain principles. And those are the principles that I adhere to. And that's why I think I've had some success in my life because I adhere to these certain principles. And James Cash Penny built that building, and now I get to be the guy that runs it for him.
Damn. Well, bro, I appreciate your time, man. I think I need to do a part 2 with you. You need to come back, maybe bring your brother or something.
Right.
Let's do it again, man. Do you have anything you want to plug? Obviously, we have Fierce Fighting Championship on the 24th. FierceFightingChampionship.com. Go get your tickets. But anything that you want to plug, anything personal to you?
Yeah, really what we want to do is just get exposure to a place. Again, I'm kind of like the marketing. And I have a regular day job and other stuff I got going on. And this is kind of like my passion project that I'd love to make a real thing. And so however we can get exposure, people want to come and rent the place or just see a tour or whatever that is, please, because we're not just a bunch of old dudes that just keep insulated to ourselves. We want to be able to be out there for everybody. And so please, Salt Lake Masonic Temple, come and visit us. Our website's the templeontemple.com, thetempleontemple.com. And that's where we kind of host our events and shows.
Yeah, man, it's a beautiful venue. Go book it out for your next event. Hit them up. Is it an email? Just the website?
Yeah, you can go into the website.
Okay, perfect.
Contact us.
Again, go check them out. Go support. I really appreciate you coming on to the show. And if you want to help support this show, go on to allrock.com, ALLRAWK.com. Again, the Patreon is alive and well. I think the whole half of this episode when we talk about Freemasonry is going to go on Patreon first, and then everybody else can get it second. So if you want to get it early, make sure you go on to patreon.com/DreRocka, DRERAWKA. Vinay, man, I appreciate you. And I hope you have the day you deserve and always protect your life, man. We out.
Thanks, Trey.
Peace.
So, obviously, you know Sajin and those guys.
Yeah, he's the one that told me about you.
Yeah, and so
we were at the when we were at the Masonic Temple, I was like, dude, like this is a beautiful place. Like,
who? Oh, you were there? That's right.
Yeah, I'm
you
the
were
DJ.
the DJ for
yeah,
it, right?
I'm the DJ. Yeah, I'm the DJ. So I as soon as we had the event, I was like, Sajin, dude, he came down. We came on. He talked about it. When I was like, dude, I would love to have somebody from the building or somebody from the Freemasons come up and talk about what they got going on.
Yeah.
He was like, I got the guy. And he sent me your number. Yeah.